right, everybody. Thank you for jumping on with me for our Your Story podcast. I got my good buddy who's rising through the ranks, Michael Barlettano, who's absolutely killing it. But, on a podcast like this, I just love listening to the things that have shaped and molded people to turn them to the, men and women that they are today. And everyone has a story. Today we're going to hear Mike's story. How you doing, Mike?
I'm good. I'm actually great, man. How are you?
I'm doing amazing. Thank you for asking. I always say this, and I love these because I learn a lot about people in a very short period of time. Growing up, you learn you shape a lot of your characteristics as an adult, and some of those things, like, obviously people can change and move and adapt. But there's events that take place in our lives, Mike, that absolutely set the tone for who we are. And that's what I love the most about this podcast. So without further ado, my man, if you could kind of walk us down the path and help us learn you about some of the things that made you the man you are today, I'd be very appreciative.
Sure. And thanks for having me on. I kind of love this, but I'm 40 years old. I was born September 5th, 1982 in Nutley, New Jersey. So pretty close to you.
Yes, sir.
Had a great family life growing up. I'm an Italian. I'm of Italian heritage. So we got that big Italian family. We were all really tight.
Nice.
So I had a really, really good childhood. Nothing I can really complain about. I thought I was brought up really well with good values, and stuff like that. My dad was an electrician, and then became a New York police officer. My mother was a housewife for most of her life, and then became a New York police officer as well later in life. So I didn't, I just knew what my family. We were a hardworking, blue collar family, and without knowing my family's finances, I always thought like we were rich. Turns out we really weren't. My family were just very good at making sure me and my sister had everything we needed. But I would say starting as a kid with sports, the biggest thing with me is competitiveness. I had to win everything. I had to win every race. I had to get the highest score on every test. That was just part of my DNA, and that's what really drove me. So when I graduate, in high school, I played, 3 sports, varsity sports, always competitive, loved winning championships, stuff like that. But then it was time to go to college. Right. And I ended up getting into a lot of good schools. My top pick was actually Notre Dame, and I got in, but we couldn't afford for me to go there. Right. So that was like my first battle with real adversity there.
Got it.
So I ended up going to the University of Richmond with that, which at the end of the day was the best decision I made. I know, it probably killed my parents financially, the part they had to pay. But when I walked on that campus, I said, I need to make everything, I need to take advantage of this opportunity. I can't screw this up. My family's spending a lot for me to go here, and I need to make the best of it. And I got an amazing education socially. I had amazing friends. I was a member of a fraternity, and, I played a lot of recreational sports while I was there.
Nice.
But again, the biggest thing was competition for me. I walked in there with some of the smartest kids in the country, and at that point, I didn't know how smart I was. Right. And I remember my first semester getting a 3.4 GPA, and I thought that was good until I learned it wasn't that good. And every semester after that, my GPA went up, and I ended up graduating with a 3.82.
Wow.
Cum laude.
And you remember the title.
Yeah. Oh, I remember all of it.
I wasn't quite Summa.
No,
I was just Magna.
just so, but again, it was competition that drove me. And then when it was time to look at a career, I knew I wanted to be in the business world, but I didn't really know what I wanted to do. So luckily I got some internships, ended up working for Morgan Stanley in New York City. And I was like back office support. right? So these traders would make trades and we just cleaned everything up.
What made you go into
And
what made you go into that industry, and why start as back office support?
money. That's all I thought it lended to my personality. I've always been very good with math and logic, and I'm a very quick thinker, and math was always my strong point. And I saw what people were making. I saw, what the people I gravitated toward were these kind of people. So my first foot in the door was this back office support internship in 2002 or three. And I said, I don't want to be this guy who's cleaning up these trades. I want to make these trades, right? I want to be that guy. So I went back to school and just started doing everything I could to prepare myself for that. And I ended up getting some incredible job offers. Some that I got was I got Goldman Sachs, SG Cowen, which is a big investment firm. It was Wachovia at the time, if you remember them, investment banking. I got an offer from Credit Suisse, and I ended up taking the offer for Citigroup, which for me was the best fit for me. And if you know anything about like the 80s and 90s with Salomon Brothers, a lot of books written about them, some great books like Long-Term Capital Management, When Genius Failed, all those. And I looked at them as the gold standard. So I went in there, and I'm with literally everyone I'm working with is either from Harvard, Yale, or Princeton. I'm like the only kid, maybe me and one other kid are non-Ivy. So again, that competitive streak kicked in. I ended up getting a 99 on my Series 7. I got 5 other series licenses, and now it's time to pick what desk you want to be on, like what products and stuff. The funny part is there was sales and there was trading, and I wanted nothing to do with sales, which is hysterical for where I am now.
Right.
Like nothing. I want to trade. I want my book of business. And I went in there, and I knew I wanted to be on the mortgage desk because that was the hot desk. Everyone loved it. And I had a really good mentor, the woman who hired me, Susan Glendon, who said, Mike, you need to go here. It's this new thing called credit derivatives, and they're exploding. I went and talked to everyone on that desk. Everyone was this mathematical genius. Like I felt dumb, right? And I'm like, I don't want to go here. And she's like, Mike, this is your ticket. So I ended up, was working 80, 90 hours a week, doing all the grunt work. I picked up a lot of lunch, a lot of coffee, got screamed at a lot. And then the best thing that ever happened to me happened. And my entire group that I was working with left to go to Barclays. And it left me and 3 other people. I ended up becoming the lead trader on a product I knew nothing about 6 months after starting at this firm, in a product that I didn't understand the math of. But trading, there's buyers and sellers. There's market momentum. You make the market. And I really took ownership of that. And I ended up getting promoted earlier than everybody else, ended up running, I think it was a $3 trillion portfolio all by myself. And it really led to a lot of things. At 22 years old, I made a $600,000 paycheck.
You were 22 years old?
It was crazy. Maybe 23, but yeah, it was my first year.
Wow.
Second year. And then I ended up getting an offer from UBS to come run their desk. And that made me a 7-figure earner. Living in New York City, living it up. But what we did was credit derivatives. And if you remember 2008, 2009, that's what blew up the world, right? Created just a mess. Now, it wasn't the credit derivatives I was doing. There were mortgage derivatives, but I was doing like investment grade debt derivatives. Everything started to change, and the government came in, you remember Dodd-Frank, all these regulations. And what I did got severely limited, right? So I ended up leaving, and I kind of retired for a couple of years at like 26 years old. And it was, so one of my big passions and things I love to do is I love to fish, absolutely favorite thing. Put me on the water, put a rod in my hand. So I had bought a beach house in Manasquan, New Jersey, on the water. and I was fishing a lot. And at that point, the price of gas was like $6 a gallon. And my boat held 240 gallons of gas.
Mm.
So I said, I need to find a way to do this better. So I went and got my captain's license and I started a fishing company, really just to like write stuff off. So I hope the IRS is not listening to this,
Mm.
but just to write stuff off. And I did that for a couple of years and it was awesome. I got to fish every day. It's what I love to do. And then the worst thing, one of the worst things happened, Hurricane Sandy.
Mm.
It destroyed my house and I ended up losing close to $1 million on the whole thing.
Wow.
So I had to go back to work. So at first, I actually thought I might want to be a financial analyst or a financial advisor. Started doing that because I had all my licenses and everything. And that's when I first got licensed in insurance. And I didn't like cold calling, right? That's what I didn't like, funny enough. So I was like, I don't want to do this anymore. So then I'm like, what can I do now? And then I met a girl who I was engaged to. Obviously, we're not together anymore, but she, her family had a food truck. So I ended up going to culinary school and buying a food truck,
Wow.
which led to a couple restaurants in Philly. But I love to cook it. I hate that business. So when that relationship didn't work out, I kind of walked away. And during that time period, I had some bad things happen to me. I had a brother named Christian, and he wasn't actually my brother. He was my cousin, but we lived together our entire lives. So I always called him my brother. And he tragically passed away at 35 years old.
Wow.
And it put me in a bad spot mentally for a while, but also, there was a lot of financial things that came out of that. And, I was taking care of all that. So, me and you have talked about this. I wanted my last career. I had some fun. I did what I did. I was kind of broke at that point, and I'm like, what, what can I do that I love? And I wanted to be involved in insurance, life insurance, because I knew the power of it. And I didn't want to be a salesperson. I actually wanted to go on like the underwriting side of things, that kind of side. But I got in the door at a company and I realized pretty quickly that it was straight sales. So I'm like, all right, I got licensed again. I did all this. I got to try it. And from day one, I started just making tons of money. And I realized because I looked at it as I don't want to sell you anything because I honestly hate selling things. Funny enough, I hate asking for favors and stuff, and I just looked at it as an educational point of view. Our clients were very blue collar clients. There were people like me growing up, and I looked at it and said, "You have no idea what would happen if your husband or your wife or whatever is in a car accident and dies tomorrow." But I kind of did know that. Right. So I looked at it very much as an educational opportunity. And I realized really quickly that I was helping a lot of people. And I will never forget sitting at my desk 6 months. So I started in like April of 2018. And it was like December, it was like 2 weeks before Christmas. And I get a call from one of my first clients. And I almost didn't pick up the phone because I'm like, they're going to cancel because they can't afford it freeze around Christmas. And I picked it up, obviously, and the woman's crying. I'm like, "All right, what's going on?" And I'll never forget. Her name was Pam. Her husband was Bob, and she was like, "Bob died in a car accident on 295 2 nights ago," and I start crying. And all she could do was say thank you to me over and over and over again.
Wow.
She's like, this wasn't even on our radar. She's like, if you didn't come to my house, and she's like, if you didn't insist on coming to my house, because she didn't want me to come to her house at first, and sit down with me, spend a couple hours, explain everything to me. And as she goes, you talked about my husband driving 20 minutes to work every day. And you asked me what road it was, and you said 295. And I was like, okay, well, you should get this accidental policy on top of this. It's a very cheap rider, and God forbid something happens. And since your husband drives more, he's at a higher risk. And sure enough, that's exactly what happened.
Wow.
And all she could say was thank you while she was crying. She's like, "You're saving me and my daughter's lives, blah, blah, blah." And so from that day forward, that changed everything for me here. And I just kept getting better and better at what I was doing, kept building a team. And, then I met Rob and yourself, and here I am now.
That's amazing, man. It's amazing what we do for a living. You know, the impact that we have on families, and then the ability to help our own family in the process. So it's a great industry. It's set up with enormous wins on just about every side, which is very difficult to do in most businesses. Um, so that's fantastic. And you alluded to finding family first life. Um, when you think about family first life, obviously you were working somewhere else. What were some of the things that drew you here? Why family first life for you and Janine?
For me, it actually goes back to helping that one woman and her husband. So, because over the next 4 years, I helped a lot of people, but there was a lot of people I couldn't help, right? Either I didn't have what they needed, or they were declined because of some medical issue, right? And that was the problem working at a captive company with one set of policies. And when I saw the opportunity from yourself and Rob, and I saw what we could do, being in, I think I'm now in 41 states, and, with all the carriers, and just seeing the type of people, seeing all the types of people we can cover, whether it's someone who's has HIV, whether it's someone who's extremely overweight, um, whatever it is, I just saw a client like 2 weeks ago who was very heavy at one point of her life and actually confined to a wheelchair. And she's like, "Don't waste your time on me. I can't, no one will insure me." And, she had weight loss surgery. She lost a ton of weight. She's very active now, but all that stuff kept stopping, wasn't allowing her to get life insurance. And, something me and you do all the time, looking at underwriting guides, we figured out the right provider. We got her approved that day with a level whole life policy. And she was so ecstatic. She literally jumped in her car at the end of the call, drove to her friend's house with me on the phone, sat at her friend's kitchen table, and we got her a policy too.
Hmm.
And that's something I couldn't have done before. And forget the products, forget the states, everything like that. The culture here is absolutely amazing. And especially when you're bringing more people on, they're going to look for culture first, right? They're buying me, they're buying you. They're not, they're they're buying us.
Right.
And the second I walked in the door, everyone is welcoming, but it's welcoming and being helpful, right? No one is vague about things. People tell you exactly what they're doing. They give you honest advice. Whereas before, I found that people always talk in generalities, said the cliches, but never told you exactly why they're successful,
Hmm.
right? Here, everyone's so willing to do that. And like, I used to bring members on my team, and they would have a hard time getting started because of people were very close. They only knew what I could teach them and this and that. And now it's like I find my new people are exploding so much faster because they have so many people giving them good advice. So I would say the culture is definitely one of the big things for me.
It's massive, dude. And especially in an industry where, you know, you can recruit anybody and you're a recruiting machine. I mean, the more people you bring on, the more you want a system and a village that can help raise the people because you can't raise everyone all by yourself. And that's not even the design. It's the reason why agencies and, businesses get so massive here. It's because I'm not going to raise everyone by myself. I need a village and a system that can back and support that. So that's fantastic. And when you think about your growth for 2023 and what your people are seeing now that they have all kinds of access to everything you just mentioned, what do you see for 2023 growth?
I think for like the team I brought in, you're going to see growth just on how much more they're able to do here than they were. But I also, when I log into my Zoom and I'm talking to everyone, I see smiles. Before it used to be, okay, I got to make all these calls. Okay, I'm going to sit here for 6 hours and not move and make calls. And now it's like people are happy, right? They have a lot of flexibility. They're making a ton of money. They're doing it on the phone. One of our biggest problems was getting people on Zoom. The no-show rate was hysterically high. You can't no-show me when I have you on the phone. You're there.
Mhm.
And I didn't believe it before I did it myself. From ring to submit application can be 30 minutes, right? 40 minutes if you do it right. And it's just, I think the people, like my agents, are just happier. And what that happiness does is it has people gravitate toward them, right? They're posting on social media. They're talking about all their successes, how they get paid the next day, how they got this person approved, that yada, yada, yada. And people are gravitating toward that. So as much as I want people to gravitate toward me, I want them to gravitate toward my people too. I came from a culture where it was forced recruiting, where you were paying $500 a week. You were calling resumes for 3 hours every morning, and you were forced to do it because if you didn't, you would lose your bonus. The culture here is make sure you're good first. Make sure you're good. Make sure you're successful and happy, and then build a team. And that's where at the stage we're at now. People have a couple months under their belt. They're making good money, and now they want to build a team. And the best part is I was talking to someone literally on Sunday about this. He goes, "How much do you spend on recruiting?" And I had two other builders with me, and they just go like this. He goes, "What?" It's like, "I'm spending $350 a week." And and I'll be honest, when I first came in, I dropped a lot of money on these ad campaigns, and I've scaled them back greatly because we're able to grow right now very organically.
Right.
With the people we have, and they just keep bringing more people into the business, and it's absolutely fantastic. And it's not because they're forced to or told they have to.
Right.
It's because they want to, and that's the key difference. And that's where we're going to get our growth for sure.
Yeah, and it's growing. It's growing fast. Fresh off convention, new year, and we're just getting started, my guys. So. Listen, I thank you for sharing your story. I love listening to it. That all these things help me as I try to help people. So appreciate you, Mike, for sharing. You are the man, brother.
Absolutely.
Your story signing off. Love you guys. God bless. Keep listening. Take care.